Morning, everyone. It's James here from Panache Cruises. Today, I'm doing another session of Meet the MD. And today, I'm really pleased to have with me Joss Dewing, the UK Managing Director of Aurora Expeditions. Good morning, Joss.
Hi, James. Thank you very much for having me, and hello to everyone watching.
How are you doing? Everything going well for you? Quite a recent appointment at Aurora Expeditions.
Yes, very exciting for me. I joined about, nearly 4 months ago now. And yeah, the company has really exciting plans to grow business from the UK and Europe. Fantastic. And yeah, we're kind of we're on that path now, and it's been fantastic getting back into this kind of deep level of cruise focus. So yeah, very happy.
Good, great to hear, and it's good to be working with you again. So cruising is obviously, up until 2019, was growing at some considerable rate. Obviously, we've had this thing called the pandemic in the way for the last 18 months, but I think the future of cruise, as we're all seeing, is exceptionally strong and positive, and no more so than expedition cruises. So I just wondered whether you'd take a couple of minutes just to give us a little bit of an overview of the expedition market as perhaps as it has been, it is at the moment, and then the exciting plans for the overall expedition sector, and obviously also Aurora Expeditions.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, expedition cruising before the pandemic started was huge. The growth, it was about 8 or 9 years ago. There was a clear move from the general traveler towards experiential travel, and it was kind of marked with the proliferation of social media and Instagram, and people really wanting to share their experiences and have these kind of big new experiences. And it began to replace the traditional asset-driven, economy. So expedition began to find its place there, and some of the bigger operators started going smaller and going into expedition, and that's where it really took off. The expedition was the fastest growing part of the cruise industry before the pandemic too. There were many new ships being built, and I think not in terms of berths, because obviously you can't beat the mega ships, but in terms of actual new builds and volume, it was the fastest growing part of the industry. And I would expect it still is going to be coming out of the pandemic, because people want that. They want that experience even more so now. People have sat around for the best part of 2 years, and they want to have these incredible big experiences. But these big experiences, you can only do it on a small ship to get into the real places that people want to go to now. So yeah, expedition cruising is phenomenal. But if you rewind it past the 8 or 9 years where it's become more popular and more mainstream with agents, you've got the companies like Aurora that have been doing it for 30 years. It's our 30th birthday this year. And we were founded 30 years ago by an expedition leader, explorer and mountaineer, Greg Mortimer, who was actually one of the first 2 Australians. They climbed together to climb Everest. He climbed without oxygen. He climbed the more challenging North Face politically, and he also climbed many of the major peaks in Antarctica. So these are where our kind of roots, they're where our roots lie in true, authentic expedition. And so you've got the expedition companies that have been doing it for a long time, and they are really about the core values and experiences that expedition cruising can deliver. So yeah, that's kind of a little take on the market and our own founding.
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit more about Aurora Expeditions, Joss. What can people expect when they board one of your ships? What's the experience like, from start to finish, really? It sounds absolutely fantastic, but just explain in your own words what it can mean to people.
Sure. Well, when we first met, James, I was running a cruise specialist agency too, and Aurora Expeditions was always the kind of ultimate expedition product for us to sell. So we focused on luxury and expedition. And if people came looking for the kind of, I want to go on a real expedition cruise on a proper small ship, and I want to do real activities, I want to go with an expedition team that's kind of highly experienced, been doing it for a long time, and I want that life-changing moment and experience, then we would always push them towards Aurora Expeditions, because it really sat in that top corner of small ship and authentic expedition. Authentic is a word that's bandied around quite a lot nowadays, so I always am cautious using it, but I think it's absolutely justified with Aurora Expeditions. So and like I said, the company was founded by a real expeditioner. So there's a DNA, there's a culture that comes through the business, which is original. It's someone who was exploring these places, climbing these mountains, and it turned into a business. That business has transformed over the last 30 years. We now have 2 brand new ships. They are very special ships. They were the first passenger ships to use the Ulstein X-bow, which some people will recognize from pictures, but the ships look very different. They're designed to move through water like a dolphin, which is a very romantic sense, but it's very effective too when you're traversing the Drake Passage down to the Antarctic Peninsula. That can be a pretty choppy ride, but with ships like this, they were designed for this purpose. The emissions are far lower than traditional ships, so we're able to contribute towards sustainability. And they're beautiful. They're 130 to 140 guests, so they are true small ships. We talk about small ships now. I hear people discussing 1,000 passenger ships as small ships. To me, a small ship is less than 150 guests, and it has to be, because otherwise it's not a small ship. So yeah, these are true small ships. They're new and they've been built for expedition, and they're very iconic looking. So this is, these are one of the leading differentiators of us too. We are pioneering as a business. We offer more activities than other expedition companies. I mean, you can do a wide variety of activities with us, from scuba diving in Antarctica to snorkeling in Alaska to kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding. We will even take guests on a 3-day trek across South Georgia in the footsteps of Shackleton, where you'll camp out, in the snow. We do a very wide variety, and our expedition team, they are, I'm allowed to say this, I work for the company, they're the best in the business. They're real expedition leaders and expedition guides. They have incredible experience. They've learned through a culture of expedition from a founder that was an expeditioner, like I've said. And it's an Australian-owned company, and that makes a difference too. There's a real vibe and sense of openness, informality, camaraderie, and there's a special feeling on the ships and with the groups. There's a real like-mindedness, and yeah, I say no one should use the expression life-changing lightly, because it's a huge claim for any business, but we hear it time and time again from guests that their life has been changed. We've enabled them to show them something that they haven't seen before, to look at the world, look at wildlife, look at the planet, look at the destination in a completely different light to you could ever get from a brochure or even from a documentary. So yeah, we offer that kind of real core experience. We also have very strong sustainability credentials. So it's one thing saying you're going to stop using plastic straws in 3 or 4 years time, but it's another thing moving towards citizen science programs, where our guests are actually doing real science on board and sending back real results, working with real environmental charities, actually doing rather than talking about. Yeah. We have a head of sustainability. We have a sustainability team to make sure that we're doing all the right things. Our ships have been built with the planet in mind, and we are affiliated with many brand ambassadors who are heroes of the planet, like Sylvia Earle, one of my heroes. My father was a professional scuba diver, and she is a world-renowned marine biologist, time hero of the planet, global ambassador for the ocean, for marine life. You'll see her on many Netflix documentaries. Our second ship is named after her. So yeah, we are, I like to say we're the real deal. That's and it makes us different.
It sounds like you're expedition to the core. That's what it sounds like. You know, wherever you look, you guys, you know, no expedition, inside out, back to front. You know, you've literally got the t-shirt. So it's fantastic just to listen to you, Josh, and just explain the passion that's with yourself, and also, you know, clearly in the Aurora team when it comes to expedition cruises. So one other question I've got for you: how have you approached the restart at Aurora? You know, it's been particularly difficult for the expedition cruise lines, given where the ships tend to be based, and, you know, accessibility, etc. So how have you approached the restart to cruising?
Well, we've been rightfully cautious. We've spent the last, you know, throughout COVID, really working through health and safety protocols. We go to places that are remote. They are wilderness destinations. So it's not like, you know, I have huge respect for the operators that have been doing domestic cruising around the UK this summer. I think it's been fantastic. They've done incredibly well. Hat off to everyone who's, you know, operated, and all the people that have gone back to cruising. I think it's been great for the industry. But obviously we're going to places like Antarctica that are, you know, you can't be in a situation there where you get you have a problem. It's remote. You have to mitigate all the risks, and you have to make sure that your health and safety protocols are absolutely watertight and shipshape. So we've done a lot of work. We believe we've come up with protocols that are incredibly safe for guests returning. They won't return with us until early 2022, when our ship will depart from Chile into Antarctica. The other thing we have done is we've moved our deployment from Argentina to Chile. We felt that Chile was a more suitable place, looking at vaccine rates and COVID levels, and we've moved the whole operation. We're looking at, you know, bubbles, corridors, charter flights, to make sure that our groups are, you know, COVID safe. Basically, we've invested in PCR testing machines, not one but two, for the ship, so that we can actually test people on board before they return if there's still a requirement needed for, you know, pre-entry PCR testing. Looks like that won't be the case, which is great, but we've got the equipment on board anyway when it comes to the UK. And yeah, we've just basically been, I guess you'd call it, crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Our season wouldn't have started anyway, because we've decided to come back into an Antarctic season, which is our UK winter anyway. But yeah, we're ready to go. We are hugely excited by the cruising restart. Generally, it's wonderful to see that some expedition operators have already started in safer locations when it comes to government restrictions, so like Iceland and so on, and they've done well. They've had a good time. It's back on the agenda, so yeah. It's very exciting, and yeah, I'm just so pleased that so many operators have managed to do it, and it's been done safely and professionally.
Yeah, and I can say that as representing, you know, 20 odd cruise lines at Panache Cruises, you know, that those cruise lines have restarted, have done it in a very sensible way, and not only have they been looking out for the health and safety of all their guests and crew, but also, you know, the reports that we're getting back from our customers are just that the best cruises they've ever been on. They're having such a fantastic time, and the enjoyment level is the same, if not better than it has been previously. So, you know, it sounds like you're doing all the right things there, and I'm sure people will have a fantastic time just as soon as they get back on Aurora, which will be sooner rather than later. I
think the other really important thing to mention here, and I know we talk about it, but I used to run a cruise company previously globally, and we, you know, the cruise industry has learned to deal with viruses and health concerns on board. We've been doing it for decades with norovirus and so on. So as an industry, it's so well equipped to deal with the problems that we have with this new virus, not so new anymore. So you see it now reflected in the actual delivery of that health and safety on real cruises that are happening now. But it is one of the safest, if not the safest way to do anything when it comes to travel and so on. That the ships are, they're kept hygienically clean and everything else. So for me personally, I can't imagine much of a safer place to be than on a cruise ship. I happily say that, and I believe it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Frank Del Rio agrees with you, doesn't he? From NCL, he says they're the safest place on earth, and I agree with him with all the protocols and the efforts and the money that's being put into making sure they are absolutely safe places to be. So, fantastic, Joss. And some of the itineraries that you guys have got planned on your return to cruise sound absolutely wonderful. Just talk us through some of your favorites.
Well, this is what I love about expedition cruising, because with a 130 passenger ship, you can kind of go anywhere. We're a polar specialist, so our core destinations are polar regions, Antarctica and the Arctic. So we're always going to spend our UK winter in Antarctica and our summer in the Arctic. And it's the regions around, and those regions are just so special. So if you look at an Antarctic season, there is so much to see and do in Antarctica. I think people would think of Antarctica as a cruise. And with a lot of larger ships, it's going to be the same. You'll have an Antarctic Peninsula cruise. You might get to see cruise past and maybe do a landing or two. But with an Aurora expedition, there's many different ways to see Antarctica and different things to do. So there's many people don't know you can fly. You can fly to Antarctica. You can fly back. You can cruise down the Drake Passage and see the peninsula and then fly back. You can fly down and cruise back. There's all different ways to do it. If you don't want to have the Drake Passage experience, you can do it in many other ways. There's obviously South Georgia, the Sandwich Islands, the Ross Sea. It's a huge area, and people want different things. You've got people who want to kayak, people who want to scuba, people who want to snorkel, people who want to photograph. There's different reasons to go to Antarctica. When you come up towards the Arctic for the summer, you've got some warm water destinations. We'll be visiting Costa Rica. In future seasons, we'll be going to Baja, California. We've got Alaska. We've got the Russian Far East, which is a destination that people are becoming more and more familiar with, but it's phenomenal. It's the wildlife you can see in the Russian Far East is extraordinary. I mean, we go to Svalbard too. Svalbard is a very popular location for us, but if you take Svalbard, one of the main reasons people travel there is to see polar bears. Now, if you go to Wrangel Island, which is a destination we have 2 cruises to in 2022, Wrangel Island is an extraordinary ecosystem. It's like a wildlife sanctuary. The island is about the size of Northern Ireland, and you would get there from Alaska. So you'd visit some interesting places in Alaska on the cruise, including King Island, which has a deserted village and has some really spectacular things to see. You would then go to Wrangel Island and circumnavigate the island. This is about 60 miles north of Russia, in the Arctic Ocean, in the Russian Far East. And there's about 6 people that live there. And they're scientists doing some really important research for the environment. On Wrangel Island, it has more polar bears than anywhere else on the planet. It has walrus, beluga whales, grey whales, hundreds of species of migratory birds, Arctic foxes, wolverines, I'm told. You'll even get hummingbirds that have been blown in from Asia. You've got this incredible wildlife. It looks a little bit stark from the photography, but you've got these big tusks lying around on the beaches and in the inlets, and people are confused. What are they? They're actually the tusks of woolly mammoths, because this is the last known place where the woolly mammoth lived, and their tusks intact are still lying around on the island. And there's a story where a group of expeditioners went to the island and they saw what looked like a flock of sheep on the side, and then they noticed this flock of sheep, hundreds and hundreds, seemed to be feeding on something which didn't make sense, because sheep don't eat meat, right? So on a closer look, they were actually polar bears feeding on the carcass of a walrus. And it turned out that about 1% of the global population of polar bears were there, or at that time, on that cove on Wrangel Island, which is just extraordinary. So it's a phenomenal place, and and we go to Raja Ampat, which is the most extraordinary place for snorkeling and scuba diving. We go to the Kuril Islands, which are north of Japan, still in the Russian Far East, Kamchatka, the Aleutian Islands. Really, we kind of traverse the whole world from pole to pole, and anything that's really worth seeing in that extraordinary detail will go there. So yeah, the itineraries are phenomenal.
Right, it's fantastic to hear your enthusiasm for it, Joss. And I guess that last question really for you. We're still coming to terms with the pandemic. We're still learning to live with it. So, you know, clearly there's still people out there, and understandably, that are a little bit hesitant on booking and committing to a cruise just yet. But what would your advice be? Why should people, you know, get something in the diary now and have something to look forward to? You know, what would your advice be to people?
Well, I think if people are comfortable that they want to travel again, there is no reason why you wouldn't book now. In fact, there is every reason to book now, because, you know, there's some anomalies at the moment of, for example, if you were looking to go away in 2022 or 2023, what you've got to be aware of as a consumer, as a traveler, is you've got people that had their cruises cancelled in 2020 and 2021 because of COVID. So a lot of people have been rolled forward and rebooked. So you've got an availability problem looming, whereby you're not just looking at a normal season, you're looking at a season that people that have missed cruises in the last 2 years have been rebooked onto. So availability is going to be much tighter than it normally would for forthcoming years. And that's being proven with you know, some of the figures that we hear from our cruise line partners. And the other thing is, you know, pricing. It's like anything. The cruise industry prefers to avoid discounting. The early booking discounts begin to expire. You know, prices are going up. I can see that prices are and will going up because the demand has really returned now. But most importantly, maybe, it feels great having something booked. It's, you know, as a personal traveler, if I knew that I was booked to go to Wrangel Island in 2022 on one of our expeditions, I'd be talking about that like I've just been talking to you, to everyone, because it's exciting and people need that. You know, we need it in our lives to have that thing to look forward to. It makes a big difference when you've got something booked and you're not just talking about it. So I think for the positive mindset, it's really important, but also in terms of, you know, the realities, pricing and availability are real. They're not just sound bites put out by salespeople to try and get people to book. It's a real thing. So that's why you need to book.
Right. No, appreciate that. Thanks for that, Joss. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Joss. Really appreciate you giving up some of your time. It's been great to hear what's been going on at Aurora Expeditions, and I wish you all the best for the future. Thanks very much for your support. You've been key to Panache moving forward with our expedition products. I appreciate you being involved there. So thanks again, Joss, and we'll catch up soon.
Oh, thanks so much, James. It's great working with you again, and yeah, it's very exciting. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.